I got to spend the weekend helping my wife's friend move. It was terrible, and I feel like I've been let out of prison. You think I'd be okay using this whiteboard?
Oh, yeah,
Would that be
absolutely.
okay?
Yeah, we also have a,
I'll clean it
We
there.
need the-
But basically, we do so much at Duke's Exteriors. It's kind of hard to decide what I wanted to talk about today, but really and truly, our passion is roofing. And you know, I could stand up here all day and tell you a bunch of stuff about roofing. We could go into different types of shingles and all kinds of fun things, but one thing that I like to talk about with every single person I encounter, every single person, whether I'm going to somebody's house to talk about a window or a door or whatever it is, I find that absolutely nobody, I'm talking maybe 3% of the population, and I may be exaggerating, have proper ventilation in their attic space. And so I decided probably the best thing I could talk about today is ventilation. It's really pretty simple, but I see it done wrong everywhere I look. I live in Mount Juliet, and 10 years ago, I think there were probably 5,000, 10,000 people in Mount Juliet, and now there's 65, 70,000 people in the Mount Juliet area. Everywhere you look, if there's a space big enough, they're building a $500,000, $700,000, $800,000 house. Now, we all learned the little house when we were in school. It's very simple, okay? If all houses were like that, my job would be really easy, if not non-existent. But the houses that we're seeing on a daily basis look more like this, okay? And this may actually be a little understated. There's more roof than there is house. What happens when you have these big roofs, there's nothing wrong with a big roof, but I'm seeing a lot of this on these new houses that cost $500,000 to $1 million. These are box vents, okay? There's a lot to a roof. I think a lot of people think that a roof is shingles. I need somebody to come out and put some shingles on my house. Shingles is a very small part of what we do. A lot of people are driving around, we call them chucking a truck, just driving around telling people, hey, I'll get your insurance guy to buy you a new roof, and that's not what we do at Duke's Exteriors. Now, we do a lot of insurance work, but we're not out just trying to milk the insurance company for free roofs. Basically, when you need a new roof system, what we run into is a lot of this. We're gonna have to come in here and take everything off of that house, okay? Get it down to the decking, which is plywood, you know, make sure that the plywood is solid. But my biggest thing, and I can do this whether we put a roof on or not, is I like to calculate your ventilation in your home. Every home has a proper amount of ventilation that is required based on the size of the house, based on the size of the roof. There's a lot of variables to how much ventilation is in that house. So when we talk about ventilation, we're talking about air in and air out. A lot of roofers get one of those right. Some of them don't get any of it right, but a lot of them get one thing. Sometimes it's in, sometimes it's out. Okay, really simple. If we go back to the little house we all know and love, the simple gable roof, what we do is ridge vent. When we put a roof on a house or even an existing roof, we will go and cut a 2-inch hole in the top of your house. That sounds frightening. Okay, but we're gonna cut a hole in the very peak of the house. We're gonna leave a foot at each end of your house, and you're gonna have a hole all the way across that. Then we're gonna install ridge vent, which is your out, your exhaust ventilation. Okay, 18 of these box vents on the top of a house is equal to 30 feet of ridge vent. Most houses that you see will not have 18 of these. Also, you've only got air going out a very small area on top of your house. What you really want is air moving through the house. We talk about air in and air out.
I think you need to go darker.
Can you not see very well?
No.
Okay. So, what we always do on every house we look at, I've had this situation with people that had brand new roofs, brand new houses, brand new, whatever, or houses that are 80 years old. First thing I'm looking at is your ventilation. Whether your roof is good or not, I'm going to calculate how much ventilation you have. Most people do not have any air going in. We want the air to go in at the bottom and come out the top because heat rises. The reason this is so important is because it gets really, really hot, sometimes up to 160 degrees in these attic spaces. What that's going to do is it's going to make it hotter in your house, making your air conditioner work harder. It's also going to make your shingles melt quickly, and it's going to take life away from your roof. Really simply, what I do is I go through here. You have what's known as your soffit, which is the little board that goes around the outside of your roof, your overhang. That's your soffit. First thing I'm going to do is see if you've got adequate intake for air to go in that area. If you do not have exhaust, nothing's going to go in that soffit. Next thing I'm going to do is make sure you have adequate exhaust. It's really simple. I have a calculator on my phone. Anybody can pull it up. I can measure your roof, measure your house, figure your square footage, and I can tell you exactly how much exhaust you need and how much intake you need. I've actually gone out and just added the proper ventilation on a lot of homes without changing their roof, and I've changed their temperature difference by as much as 30 degrees. About $1,000 worth of work. Changed their house that much. I know I'm kind of all over the place here.
You're fine, you're fine.
But the biggest thing I see that when I drive around is the brand new neighborhoods with the big houses that have, you can see from the road, no exhaust. A lot of times they will have adequate intake, but nothing's coming out. When you change that, get them the proper exhaust, they will actually feel the temperature inside their home go down. I hear people a lot of times, they'll ask me, do you do insulation? I'm like, sure, but why do you need insulation? And then they'll start telling me things like, my closets are hot. I'll open the door on the closet and I feel heat coming out. That's not it's not necessarily an insulation thing. Generally speaking, it's too hot in that attic. There's no air leaving. In the wintertime, you still want the airflow. A lot of times I'll see these box fans, and then I'll see a ridge vent added. Somebody will have a ridge vent. More ventilation's better, right? No. What's actually happening now is this is being short-circuited. What we want to happen is we want air to go in and air to go out. That makes that air flow properly through that house. a lot of houses I will see in people's bathrooms, if you've ever seen, water running down the walls, where the walls kind of stay wet, or you'll see kind of paint has softened and it's kind of fallen off the walls. That's right here. That's the air is not moving inside that house. It's not moving in the attic. So many things can be fixed just by having proper ventilation. I could go into all day the system of a roof, but in my opinion, the most valuable thing is having your proper ventilation. Do I have any questions on what we do?
Very informative.
Mhm.
That's good stuff.
The I guess the only thing I could do to elaborate is I had a house, an example in Ashland City, and nice little house. The people told me we need insulation. We've got this and this, and I'm like, when was your roof put on? I hadn't even looked at the roof. I was there to look at a window, but I knew they had a new roof just from what they were telling me. I'd go outside and I looked, the roof was put on perfectly. You couldn't have done a better job as far as the roof was concerned. They had a ridge vent going all the way across the top of the house. Everything was in perfect order. But right up under here, they had almost no ventilation, no intake whatsoever.
So
I
this
did-
is solid vinyl siding.
Well, it was basically plywood, and they had some vents. There were some vents cut out. When I took one of the vents off, they had like say it was a 6x16 vent, whatever there. When I took the vent off, there was actually a hole that had been cut that was about 10 inches long and maybe an inch wide. So the actual air coming in was very minimum. But on this particular house, they were required 888 square inches of exhaust and intake. So that means 888 square inches of intake and 888 square inches of exhaust. They had about 1,500 square inches of exhaust, which is fine. It's perfectly okay to have more than enough, but they had about 200 square inches of intake. So what's basically happened is kind of like trying to suck something through a straw, like a bowling ball through a straw. You're just not getting any air in that house. It's not going to be pulling. I mean, it was pulling a lot of air through those few holes, but they're not getting air. What was funny about that house is it was 80 degrees, and I've got an infrared thermometer and a gun, and I shot the house. Now this is a tricky thing. I like to tell everybody exactly what I'm really doing. I shoot up in the attic. I'm not getting the air temperature of the attic. I'm actually getting the inside of the plywood. Is that it?
No,
Okay. I'm not actually getting the air temperature. I'm getting the surface temperature of the inside of that decking. Okay, so I shot that. It was 80 degrees that day and very, very cloudy. I shot, the temperature was 100 and, if I remember right, I think it was 128 degrees, something like that, on the inside of that decking. The air temperature was easily 115, 120 degrees inside that attic on an 80 degree cloudy day. We added some ventilation. All we had to do was go and cut some holes up under here, add some more vents. Basically, I made the holes that were there bigger, and I added more holes between the rafter tails. There was about maybe, I think 2 guys worked for around 8 hours on that house. The next day, I came back to check everything. I had, it was the same kind of day. It was 80 degrees, very cloudy. I put the gun on it. It came out at 101 degrees in that one house. That's on an 80 degree cloudy day. Okay. I really kind of wish it had been one of those scenarios when it's 95 and the sun shining bright, because I could have really seen a tremendous difference. But there was about a 30-degree difference in temperature on a normal day. Those people are gonna experience just a lot better efficiency from their AC. Their AC unit's gonna last longer, their roof is gonna last longer for about $1,000. And, on every roof we do, the very first thing that I concern myself with is this. Now, we could get into flashing and all the fun things that are involved in roofing, but number one, first and foremost, when I go look at somebody's home, this is what I'm looking at first.
I guess it'll be what I'm looking at too when I get home.
But it really does make a huge difference. My house that in Mount Juliet, when I first moved in, we smelled, whoever lived there before us smoked, and they apparently smoked a lot. But you'd never notice it, except, you come in from work on a, really hot summer day, and it smelled like, you could smell cigarettes. It's like an old hotel. The drywall had been replaced in this house, all the ductwork had been replaced in this house, paint, no carpet, the carpet had all been taken out. I can still smell cigarettes from decades ago. Getting the proper ventilation in this house, I don't smell cigarette smoke anymore. Basically, whatever was in the drywall and the ceiling and the insulation from years past was still soaking down in the house from just the excess heat inside the attic space.
Cool. Anybody got any questions? All right.
Good job, man.
Awesome. Thank you.